Thank you so much, Amrit, for joining us today. I'm going to jump right in. I know people are hungry, so we're going to make it as interesting as possible. So, Amrit, when we look at Zetwerk, right, it started off as a software firm. Then, you went into hardcore manufacturing. And today it's a both software and hardware-rich company. And we think of any sectors, there's a little bit of Zetwerk there, right? Aerospace, the watches that we wear. As a founder, how does it feel? Alok was here, he was telling about it being, there are a lot of sleepless nights, right? But how is it for you? Is it exciting? Is it giving you a lot of sleepless nights?
I think the founder's journey is you sign up for that, you don't always know what you're signing up for at the time you start the company, but I think the resilience that you build into both yourself and to your business is what determines longevity over a long period of time. If you take a cricket analogy, yes, there have been many people who've done well, but there's only one Sachin Tendulkar who, was able to deliver the same performance even when he was 40. So the building resiliency both for yourself, because the journey is very hard. Honestly, I didn't know how hard it was when I started. When I started, it looked all exciting. Even now it looks very exciting, but in day zero it was all excitement and no reality check. And over the years, we've got multiple reality checks. I think how you pick yourself up when you fall down, I think that's what determines longevity.
Wonderful, yeah. But Amrit, when we talk of Zetwerk's growth, right, you're a 11,000 crore revenue company, and post-pandemic, unlike for many of the startups, Zetwerk did have a tailwind, right? When many countries were moving away from China, wanted to diversify their supplies, Zetwerk did tap into that opportunity. But is it still the tailwind for you, or is there anything else that's fueling your growth?
No, so for us, if you look at our journey 6 years back when we started, GST had just been launched. This was 2018. And we didn't realize it at that time, but every customer was transitioning from a pre-GST supply chain to a post-GST supply chain. So which, in hindsight, meant that supply chains in India were very regional. Every state had specific expertise and customers tapped into that. And GST made a regional supply chain into a national supply chain. Over the last 2 years during COVID, that journey became from a national supply chain to an international supply chain.
Yeah.
And my limited point is tailwinds. It's great if you get them. You can't design your business around that. I think what you can design is when that tailwind happens, are you best poised to take advantage or accelerate? We have been lucky that way, that we have benefited from that. But over the long period of time, these things again will be blips. To answer your question directly, yeah, China Plus One is a strong tailwind. I think the public markets in India recognize that as well. India is sitting on a very large opportunity where Make in India is pretty real. Make in India for India, Make in India for the world is real. But that being said, it will only allow you to get that first 1 or 2 years of benefit. After that, you have to compete on your own strengths. And I think that market is, and us as a company, we're heading into that direction where the first couple of years was of China Plus One was it lifted all ships. The rising tide lifts all ships. But today, we'll reach that point where it's not the sector that will matter, but individual companies who perform.
So what is it now? What do you think are your pockets of demand, and what's fueling your growth now?
We are prioritizing markets which are fundamentally growing, and then if there is a China Plus One tailwind on top of that, that is an added cherry on top. So if you look at markets which are growing, and look, I'm not an economist, it's hard to predict, but a big part of our business revenue comes from the renewables industry, solar and wind. It's almost a third of revenue. It's very, very easy for me to say that in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there'll be more solar than today. And I may be wrong, but I'm hopefully not wrong about that. And then there are certain other categories, if you look at electronics in India, the consumption of electronics in India is growing 20%, 30% year on year. And then the mix of how much gets done in China and how much gets done in India is growing 50% year on year. So you pick market segments which are growing, and then if you layer on a mix shift that is happening from China to India, that's an added cherry on top. So our focus will be on renewables, our focus will be on electronics, and our focus will be on aerospace and defense. These are 3 categories we are spending time on.
Great, great. Yeah. So that's exactly what I want to touch upon next. Do you see you are across all sectors like we spoke about, but is that a risk that you're spreading yourself too thin, or how do you see it? Do you ever feel like, you could have gone to a niche segment? Is that a challenge for you basically?
No, I think it's a very valid one. I think for the first 2 years of our journey, we were focused on one single category. It's how I would describe Amazon doing books. In our case, it was steel fabrication, which is very niche. But our journey to diversify started during COVID when, because we were focused on a single category, it was great to build the infrastructure of the company, which is the software layer, the people layer, the process layer. But at that time, it hurt us because we were focused on one single category. Our revenue shrank in the short term. And then we diversified into all of these different end users. While we diversify into various end users, they all share the same capabilities that we are underlying leveraging on. So I feel any business will go through these periods of converge and diverge. Initially, it helps to be focused because there are too many problems to solve and you don't want to add an additional problem. At some point, you realize that time is finite and your ideal customer profile is limited, so you expand. And then today we're back into the phase where we're again converging. So which is why I said 3 categories, which is renewables, electronics and A&D. I think these 3 will drive 80% of revenue for us. We'll still keep doing other things because we want to keep our presence felt in those markets. But yeah, right now we're in the focused phase.
But bringing innovation, isn't it difficult when you are, across all these sectors?
Yeah, I think the trade-off always is bandwidth, and bandwidth is in 2 forms. It is money and time, effectively, and capital is finite, and time also is finite. In fact, time is more finite than capital. So as you and also you can't make a very successful claim that you'll be good at everything because nobody is, and I'll say that with all humility for ourselves, we're not good at everything. But what you realize is once you are present in certain niche markets and you discover some gaps, it is always good to double down on those specific things that are working. But at the same time, you need to keep that innovation culture in the company, which is like 80% of the company is focusing on that 80% that is driving results. But you always pick these small teams which are keep on experimenting, because today's experiment can become tomorrow's big category. So that balance is what I think hard to do, and something we try and do at our end.
Great, yeah. Amrit, whenever we think of manufacturing or deep tech, our minds go to IIT Madras, and Zetwerk do have a very close connection as well. So, how do you think these institutions basically, help founders? How significant are these institutions basically?
I think the next wave of innovation will have to be driven by academia and companies combining together. I think the US...
Professors and students
I was recently in IIT Madras. We were addressing the freshman class, and I think what happens is the culture of the institute does pass on. So Aether Energy, which is a very successful product-based company built out of IIT Madras, we do a lot of things which is combining software, hardware. And you see that the next generation, they are also looking at these kind of companies. They are looking at, our EV charger business. They are looking at things in aerospace and defense, flying taxis. These are things that do come out of IIT Madras. I think that is important to maintain. One version of that is just the culture of the campus itself, but second is good case studies of companies which have done well. So yeah, IIT Madras can be the Stanford of India.
Definitely, yeah. Amrit, I think we have last couple of minutes. I just want to ask you, you would be the right person to answer this as well. When we think of putting up manufacturing facilities in a state, right? You are Bangalore based, but you do have manufacturing facilities across India, right? So according to you, which state is the best? Or I'd put it this way, how do you decide, where to put your manufacturing facility? What's that deciding factor?
See, the reality of any business or any sector is power laws do exist. So today we are in a situation where if you look at Make in India, it is a rising tide that is lifting all ships. So a lot of companies are doing well. But if you take a few years down the line, some of that convergence will happen in the form of power laws, where some companies will benefit disproportionately, and by extension, some ecosystems which have cracked some things right. So, but the good thing is, manufacturing is one word which combines many different categories.
Yeah.
So you will see pockets emerging. Like if you look at electronics, both north and south are emerging as strong pockets. Like Foxconn is a good example, built a very big base in Chennai. But if you look at all the mobile phones, they all happen in the north. Solar is big in Gujarat and Maharashtra, but we are now seeing the new component ecosystem coming up even in Orissa. Okay. So it's hard to say. I think I'm biased. I hope the entire country lifts in this journey. But what will happen is sectoral expertise will get developed. Aerospace and defense, there's no better place than Bangalore. It's always been that way for the last 20 years, and I think that's what's likely to continue.
You don't want to answer the which state part?
I'm from Orissa, so I'll pick Orissa.
Right. But talking of, which state and policies, do you think there's enough being done? We do see announcements in the budgets for manufacturing sector, but specifically for startups, do you think more can be done?
Yeah, it's one of those things where actually, if you look at the earlier the stage of the company, the less policy can help. That's my view. Once companies get a little bit larger, because policy as an instrument is something that has to be democratic by design, and hence it cannot be tailored to one specific company or one specific sector. Whereas the needs of young companies are very, very unique. Because they have identified a gap in the market which only they know, which is why they exist, and henceforward. What I think the big difference can happen between when we started the business and today is like the inflow of more domestic capital. I think that is something which could be designed through policy, could be designed through just market participants thinking that the next great set of returns can come from this vintage of companies. I think whatever we could do to encourage that will take the ecosystem to the next level, because today it's still heavily reliant on foreign capital. Right.
Yeah. And, Amrit, Zetwerk is a unicorn, more than a unicorn, 2 billion valuation. And your revenue is like 11,000 crores. You're already profitable. You've said that. So what's next? Would we expect an IPO, or are you focusing on more M&As for expansion? What's in the cards?
For us, IPO is always a goal we want to get to.
But timeline?
The company started in 2018, so we are still a little young. But what we are doing is we're creating the right infrastructure that enables us to be a public company, at the right point in time. I would still say we're at least a couple of years away.
Right. But will there be more M&As that we'll see? Are you looking at acquisitions?
Our goal is very clear, that we want to provide high quality manufacturing within the categories we operate to the customers we serve. Our preferred approach is to do it the way we have done it so far, which is the asset-light model, marketplace, a lot of software. Once in a while, we notice gaps in the market, which we can either ignore that gap or we can decide to do something about it. So whenever we have done M&A, it is with that goal. It is what is that problem we are solving, which is customer backwards. Are we the best person to solve it with the current systems we have, or do we need help outside? So we have done some M&As, but it's not a big part of our plan.
Understood. Yeah. I think we've almost done. I'm going to let you go with one rapid fire question. Amrit, what's your North Star? Do you want to be the Foxconn of India?
No, we don't want to be anyone of anyone else. Look, we started as an Indian company, but today a third of our revenue comes overseas. We are truly trying to build a global franchisee. I think we are exporting both software, we're exporting people, we're exporting, manufacturing. We would like to be the Zetwerk of India and maybe Zetwerk of the world. Yeah.
Great. On that note, thank you so much, Amrit. Thank you so much, everyone.